Hi Whovians, Harry here, and welcome to my first fairy of 2024, and it is going over everyone's favourite mysterious character, Mrs. Flood, and it is a fairy that I haven't heard anyone talk about. But before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe, also leave a like and comment down below, and let's get in to the video. So, of course, the main thing with Mrs. Flood that everyone has been talking about is, who is she? There have been theories on, who is she, because at the end of Doctor Who, The Church on Ruby Road, she broke the fourth wall by addressing the audience, saying, "Never seen a TARDIS before," and then winking, of course implying that she knew what a TARDIS was, and maybe she even knew who the Doctor was. And there have been many theories about who she is, is she the Master? Is she the Rani? Is she Susan? Or is she even an older version of Ruby Sunday herself? However, that has been done to death. You could go to any Doctor Who video about Mrs. Flood, and that has been done to death. Every option of who she is has already been covered. So this video is not that. This video is actually, is there three different Mrs. Floods in one episode? Now, I do have to point out that Anita Dobson, who plays Mrs. Flood in The Church on Ruby Road, has appeared in Doctor Who before. I'm just going to mention it, because if I don't, someone down in the comments will say that she has appeared in Doctor Who before. So she hasn't actually appeared in the TV show, but she has voiced a character called Eileen Clint in the Eighth Doctor Adventures audio story, Blood of the Daleks. And Eileen Clint is basically the acting president of a planet, Red Rocket Rising, which is a human colony, and they've colonized that planet. They've created a space on that planet because they've moved away from Earth. And I don't think she ever entered the TARDIS before, so it wouldn't really make sense for Mrs. Flood. And of course, there's the whole lot of things that it doesn't really fit into the timeline. But I just thought I would mention it, because if I didn't, someone would say, "You forgot that she was in this audio adventure." But for this fairy, I don't think she is that character. I think she is a completely new character. And what I find more interesting is she the same person throughout this episode? So I thought about this fairy because in this one episode, we already see a multiverse. We see a universe where Ruby exists, and we see a universe where she doesn't exist. So that already implies the fairy. You only need to watch this one Doctor Who Christmas special to know about multiverses in Doctor Who anyway, that they exist. And the reason I think that Mrs. Flood could be a different person in each adventure, or that we have three different universes with three different Mrs. Floods, is the fact that she acts very different in each appearance we see her in. So in the first appearance we see of Mrs. Flood in the timeline where we start this episode of Doctor Who after the credits play, we see Mrs. Flood, and she is presented as a angry, cantankerous, old, nosy woman, and she is angry at her neighbour Abdul and just shouting at him for putting a police box outside her flat. And of course we do see her be nice to Ruby, but she is completely the opposite to Abdul, and she is complaining and shouting at him, saying that he put the police box outside her flat. However, why would she just be shouting at him for putting the police box outside her flat if she knew it was the TARDIS and that the Doctor put it there? Because she knows that the Doctor is the police box is the Doctor's, because she says later, "You and your box of tricks." when she's talking to the doctor. So why would she blame Abdul for putting the police box outside her flat if she knew it was the doctor all along? And you could be thinking, well, she's just being angry for no reason to Abdul. But I don't think that is the case, because I will get onto something later where she is completely the opposite to what we see at the start. And then, of course, we go to the other universe where Ruby was erased from existence, and we see Mrs. Flood again. And when she sees the TARDIS dematerialise, she drops her shopping in shock, because she just saw the TARDIS vanish. However, why would she act shocked if she knew the TARDIS was a TARDIS? There's no one around her, no one looking at her to make sure she's acting shocked, apart from us. But why would she act shocked, even if it was just to throw us off, if she's just going to reveal at the end of this episode that she knew what a TARDIS was? It doesn't make any sense. And that's a universe that we know is different from the universe which we start this episode with. And then I feel like we get another universe when the Doctor fixes fixes the past and saves Ruby from being eaten by the goblins, because Mrs. Flood is a quite warm woman in the final scenes that we see her in. Like, she is nice to Ruby and even Abdul as well, because she encourages Ruby to go inside her TARDIS, encourages Ruby to go inside the Doctor's TARDIS, wishes Ruby good luck, and I don't know, it's just quite nice to Ruby, and also seems like a all-knowing, like, sage almost. And then we get, of course, the mid-credit scene with Mrs. Flood and Abdul comes running up saying to Mrs. Flood, "Did you see that box vanish?" And she's quite nice to him, which contrasts how she was earlier in the episode when we first saw her, where she was shouting at Abdul and was quite angry with him. And then, of course, she looks at the camera, breaking the fourth wall, addressing the audience, and says, "Never seen a TARDIS before," and winks, which of course implies that she knows what a TARDIS is, which is different from how she acted at the start when she was shouting at Abdul because she thought he put the police box outside her flat, and also when she saw the TARDIS dematerialise when the Doctor went back to the past to save Ruby. So in each incarnation that we see Mrs. Flood, she seems like a completely different person. We see the angry, cantankerous, mean to Abdul Mrs. Flood that doesn't seem to know what a TARDIS is. We see the shocked, surprised Mrs. Flood who doesn't seem to know what a TARDIS is, but doesn't seem angry or cantankerous or nosy. And then we see a warm and kindly Mrs. Flood, which seems to know what a TARDIS is. And that just makes me think, have we seen 3 different universes in one episode with 3 different Mrs. Floods? And I wonder if this theory is true, that this will factor in a big way later in this upcoming series, or maybe even season 2 of Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson's Doctor Who. But that is just my thoughts. This is just a fun little theory that I wanted to share that I came up with, because I haven't seen this being talked about at all. As I said, people talking about who Mrs. Flood is has just been done to death. So I wanted to do a completely different theory. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that this could actually be a real thing. And let me know what you think of this theory down in the comments below. And also, if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, also subscribe. And remember, that's just a theory. A Doctor Who theory. You know what I'm talking about. I'll see you in the next one.